Episode 20 opens on a dark screen, and we're given no time to orient as we hear the clashing of blades. We cut in visually to watch what is a relatively straightforward 1v1 fight between Crow and Clover, with the two limited in their options given the confined space of the hallway. The entire time the two have their bout, Tyrion is gleefully watching it in the reflection of the windows, angling his head as best he can to get a better view. At one point, during the clash, they inadvertently cut through some of Tyrion's bonds, allowing him to free himself without the two noticing until it's too late. Tyrion manages to hold both men off on his own, even without his weapons, breaking the windows in the hall and using the shards of glass as improvised blades, willingly letting them cut into his skin as he does. It becomes a brief three-way struggle, ending when Clover is stabbed by Tyrion's tail. Retaliating reflexively, he kicks Tyrion into Crow, knocking them both out of the several-story window. Eyes widening in horror, Clover rushes to the frame, yelling, "Crow!" and readying his fishing hook to catch him. He arrives just in time to see Tyrion kick off Crow and slide safely down the side of the building the rest of the way, and Crow transmorph into his bird form. Clover watches, gripping his poisoned wound as the bird flies out of sight. With the slightest of smiles amid the grimace on his face, he chokes out,
"Well, that's lucky."
The poison taking quick effect, he slumps to the ground. Pulling out his scroll, he dials a number and says,
"Medical teams, I need assistance."
Back in the command suite, Ironwood is monitoring the situation as an officer pipes up, "General, we have reports of multiple engagements within the facility. Security teams are already on their way." Ironwood's face is a statue at this point, jaw locked with anger and frustration. There's a chirp from his scroll, which he draws with blinding speed. The message he received is from Winter, containing only one word: contact. Glaring at it, Ironwood pockets the device and heads towards the door. On his way out, he turns to the highest-ranking officer. "Captain, you're in charge until I return. Keep order at all costs." The woman salutes with a crisp, "Sir!" as Ironwood leaves. We transfer over to said contact, with Winter and Penny battling it out against Cinder in the vault chamber. This, similar to the battle between Cinder and Raven, is one of the highest power battles we've seen in RWBY yet, pitting Cinder's maiden abilities up against Penny's fine-tuned, inhumanly powerful combat systems and Winter's exceptional skills, training, and experience. The chamber itself makes for a cinematic spot thanks to the esoteric floating geography, the freestanding bridge, and Freya's icy winds growing larger and larger until they borderline swallow most of the bridge. The three are forced to battle around all these obstacles, darting in and out, exchanging blades, dust-based projectile attacks, and magical energy blasts from Cinder. It's very much a battle reliant on Winter and Penny being clever combatants to outwit Cinder, all while Cinder tries to overpower them with well-applied brute force. This fight only comes near to a close when Cinder wreathes herself in flame, burning flecks of her own skin, just so she can dive through Freya's winds to where the old woman is floating, claw outstretched to try and steal her maiden powers. She gets inches away before there's a flash of green and her claw is severed at the elbow. Cinder turns to see Penny, diving into the heart of the storm, body covered in frost, having cleaved through Cinder's arm with one of her blades. Cinder's fire dies out completely under the winds, and she slams into both Penny and Freya, taking all three to the ground. From there, we travel back to the halls of Atlas as guards are scrambling through them in every direction. We focus on two of them, walking quickly with just enough energy to seem urgent while not really expending that much genuine effort. They slow to a stop when they see, up ahead of them, two other Atlas security members in a heated conversation with a very familiar waitress, one who is demanding to be let pass because she apparently lost something. This lie quickly falls away when she looks up and sees the two guards we were focusing on, and recognizes them. Face going red with rage, Malachite drops the act and flashes out her claws, striking down the two guards, waylaying her and giving her a clear shot at her targets. She rushes forward and the two guards, clearly Neo and Roman at this point, scramble into the nearest door. They burst through into the school's kitchen, and what follows is a somewhat comedic fight sequence, as Roman and Neo use not only their weapons, but the cutlery, pots, and pans to protect themselves from Malachite's vicious attacks. Unlike her solo bout with Neo, though, there's no longer a pretense of trying to stay hidden, which allows Malachite to go all out and hold her own against the two. She's unrelenting, single-mindedly focusing on Roman, reacting only to Neo defensively, which actually throws Neo's normally defensive style completely off. Along the way, Neo's disguises are shattered, and Malachite tears her own apart while fighting, leaving them all in their normal designs as the chase exits into the cafeteria and out the opposing door. We finally catch up with RWBY, who has arrived at the door to the vault elevator, and finds it melted clean through, presumably by cinder. She presses the button to call the elevator and begins to bounce on her heels nervously as it starts to ascend. After a moment of thought, she shakes her head, slapping at it while asking, "What am I doing?" She steps up to the diagonal incline and resolutely begins to run down the elevator track. Using her semblance, she makes great time, gliding right over the elevator platform and stopping at the base of the bridge. She's just in time to see Cinder staggering to her feet in front of the shut vault door, clutching her writhing black arm in pain. On one side of the platform is a battered and frostbitten-looking Winter, blade poised to continue fighting. On the other are Penny and Freya, the former heavily damaged by the still raging freezing winds and combat, but still standing up to defy Cinder. Cinder, meanwhile, seems to be struggling greatly, taking labored breaths and her face twisted in agony. Noticing RWBY at the far end of the bridge, Cinder's scowl only deepens, and she lets out a primal scream of frustration. Stomping her feet, she summons an explosive wave of fire, propelling herself up through the ceiling of the chamber through a sheer demonstration of magical power. Penny shields Freya from the debris, and Winter shields herself. There's a moment of pause as the conflict simmers down, but there's the dreaded realization that Freya's winds are still going. Penny, noticing this from inside, gently grabs the old woman's arms, ignoring how her clothing and artificial skin are being chipped away. "Miss Freya? It's okay now. The enemy is gone." Freya looks up at her, much more gaunt than before. Hesitantly, Freya reaches up to Penny's face, cupping her cheek as though it were made of porcelain. The winds begin to die down, the energy leaving Freya's eyes as she looks up at Penny with a soft, relieved smile. Warmly, the last thing Freya says is, "It's really you," before her hand slips away from Penny's face. Penny catches the hand in her own as the winds begin to kick back up around them. However, unlike before, these winds are warm, melting the frost and ice caused by the earlier storm. As Freya goes limp, the winds guide themselves into Penny, causing her aura to glow brighter and brighter, until there's a burst, showering the area around them in ethereal snowdrop petals that fade as they touch the ground. Penny looks down at Freya's lifeless body, grief-stricken despite the peaceful look on the old woman's face, and she gently lays the woman down on the floor. Winter falls to her knees on the platform, exhausted from the battle, and takes notice of RWBY walking up the path. Penny also takes notice, especially after RWBY asks, with no small hint of concern, "Penny?" Disappointing as it may be, we don't linger on this scene quite yet. I only just realized that, boy, there's a lot of cutting around in this finale. It makes sense, there's a ton of things happening simultaneously. Don't worry, we'll come back to this scene pretty quickly. We cut to Malachite in hot pursuit of Roman and Neo, rushing through the halls and blowing past Atlas's guards. While Roman and Neo are rushing past them, Malachite is actively striking down any of the ones who choose to get between her and them. At a T intersection, the chase intersects with Team Junior, still en route to the crash. It takes only a moment for John's eyes to lock onto Roman, Neo, and the lamp on her waist for his face to harden in rage. No hesitation, he calls out, "Oh no you don't! After them!" And the three follow into pursuit. The chase spills out from the hallway into Atlas's main foyer, where many partygoers are still being assured by Atlas staff and guards that everything is still under control, as well as apologizing that no one can quite leave yet. This proves to be a formidable obstacle as John, Ren, and Nora are unable to go all out for risk of hurting civilians, while Roman and Neo are all too happy to use people as human shields, and Malachite has no qualms cutting people down indiscriminately. This also makes it difficult for the Atlas guards to intervene, as those that try to avoid casualties have to get close and either get in Junior's way or get struck down by Malachite. Another facet of this fight is the lamp, which Ren manages to recover from Neo but has it stolen back by Roman, only to have Nora slam him on his feet with her hammer, adding in a brief, angry, "Not sorry!" that makes him drop it. Malachite, either already knowing what the lamp is because of Cinder or simply picking up on the back and forth, claims it for herself, dangling it off her claws in the ensuing battle. She keeps hold of it for a good chunk of the fight, and between her, Roman, and Neo, Team Junior is incapacitated, ending with John being knocked out cold by Roman's cane. This leaves Roman and Neo scrambling to get the lamp, but Malachite holds her own. In a decisive moment, she knocks Neo to the ground and kicks Roman away across the room, just as an enraged ball of fire and spite bursts through the ground of the main foyer, blasting its way out the front wall of the academy. The crater keeps Roman separated from them long enough for Malachite to tower over Neo, claw poised to kill her. And then she freezes. Laying below her, looking up at her in abject fear, is Milcha Malachite. We hear Milcha's voice in Malachite's head, screaming, "What? That's not me! Kill her! Kill her!" Malachite is frozen long enough for Roman's cane to come down across her back, knocking her off her feet and making her drop the relic. Roman grabs it, but glares down at Neo, still in her illusory disguise. He spares a pitying glance towards Malachite, then swallows all of those feelings and helps Neo to her feet. "We got what we want," he says coldly. Neo looks up at him, confused, and Roman refuses to look at her as he says, "Let's go." Neo also looks away as the two shatter into glass, vanishing. Malachite, still conscious but suffering from a breakdown, is left alone as guards hesitantly close in around her, the unseen Milcha screaming at her to get up. Getting some level of wits about her, she lashes out, taking a few shots from their rifles to her strained aura as she clambers her way out of the hole in the wall left by the fiery rocket that was Cinder. The guards, unable to pursue, look to the unconscious Junior and give orders to have them and the wounded civilians taken to the infirmary. This content and the rest of the content on Celtic Phoenix is brought to you by the wonderful people supporting the channel through Patreon. For just $1 or more, you can gain access to the Tundra Discord server, where you can interact with me and a whole host of my fellow internet colleagues, such as the other members of Team Frostbite and the Team Jacked podcast. Become a part of our regular bad fanfiction nights that happen every Friday night at 10 PM Eastern Standard Time by joining our chat and adding your commentary to the reading. You can also join by becoming a member of the Celtic Phoenix YouTube channel, with the additional bonus of gaining access to a bunch of sweet emoticons during every one of our streams, such as the Team Jacked podcast, which airs every Wednesday at 6 PM Eastern Standard Time. But if either of those are too much for you, you can always subscribe to the channel, enable alerts, like this video, and share it around to all your friends. Thank you all so much for watching, and we now return you to your regularly scheduled fixing. The camera drags down the diagonal hole left by Cinder through layer after layer of collapsed rock and hallway before it arrives at the vault chamber. Ruby is staring up the stairs at Penny, but as she goes to approach, Winter raises her blade from where she's slumped over to threaten Ruby into stopping. Taking a step back in fear, Ruby isn't sure how to proceed, glancing between the two before focusing on her friend. "Penny, are you?" Penny straightens up and looks over to Ruby, face a war of emotions. "I have assumed my responsibility. I am fine." Ruby sighs, relieved to know Penny is safe, but also sad about Freya. Winter glances over at Penny and with a reluctant blink, orders, "Penny, go after her." Penny looks between Ruby and Winter and flies off up through the hole Cinder left behind. Frowning, Ruby watches her go, then glares at Winter, turning to leave. "I'm going to go help." A voice calls out from behind Ruby, loud without yelling, clear and strong. "You've done enough." All eyes turn back to the lift, which has come to a rest at the bottom of the bridge, a stone-faced Ironwood upon it, gaze affixed to Ruby. Meanwhile, up at the top of the lift, Blake and Yang skid to a stop, viewing the melted door with panic, especially finding no Ruby or Weiss. Jittering with anxiety, Yang voices it by asking, "Are we too early or too late?" Blake doesn't know how to respond, but Chance answers for them as Weiss rushes up from a different hallway. Out of breath, she glances around and asks, "Is Ruby already down there?" Yang and Blake don't have time to respond as a rainbow blur rushes into them, clobbering Blake over the head with a nunchaku. Blake is sent sprawling, and the other two are so distracted with the rainbow thread they're caught off guard when they're hit with a sonic wave from Flint's trumpet. They're taken off their feet when Blake rolls onto hers, firing deadly at Flint in retaliation. It doesn't make it halfway before it's sniped out of the air and redirected into a nearby wall by a shot from Ciel's sniper rifle. Flint doesn't stay idle, splitting out into his quartet and creating a harmonized wall of sound that sends Blake down to her knees, gripping her ears in pain. Neon capitalizes on this moment, yanking Blake's arm behind her back and restraining her before using a spin to fling Blake into a wall and knock her out of the fight. Yang shouts Blake's name and charges Neon. Flint is about to attack her, but Weiss puts up a wall of ice to block him, but she runs out of dust halfway through, so some of the attack still makes it past the barrier. Yang tanks it and turns up her flames, but Neon is too nimble, skating circles around her as Ciel fires. Yang's aura tanks the shot, but barely, sending her stumbling forward into Neon's nunchaku. Weiss slashes a wave of fire down the hallway, forcing Ciel to roll aside and catching Neon along the way. However, while she's doing this, Flint has recalled his clones just to resummon them beyond her ice wall, right next to Yang, where they proceed to blast her with overwhelming sound waves that knock her out cold. Neon recovers and charges at Weiss as she uses her speed loaders to reload Naster's ice dust. Just in time, she creates an ice ramp to send Neon off course, sending her careening into Flint, but this leaves her open for CL to reacquire her aim and snipe Naster out of her hand. Weiss, gritting her teeth, slides to the side and calls up a summon glyph, her armored Gygas pulling itself out of the ground, only for CL's second shot to take out one of its arms. Weiss glances at Naster a fair distance away, and she's torn between attempting to continue the summon or lunging for her weapon. This moment of hesitation is enough for CL to blow the Gygas' head off with another shot, and for Neon to come rushing out from the mess of ice wall that Weiss had ended up creating. Too late, Weiss tries to lunge for her weapon. Neon is already in her way, bringing her nunchaku down on Weiss's head, bringing the world to silence. The camera follows as Weiss's head crashes to the floor and the world goes black, using the motion to pan down into the vault chamber below. We focus only on the exhausted breathing of everyone in the chamber and Ironwood's heavy footfalls as he walks towards RWBY. RWBY looks at him, bewildered.
General Ironwood, I didn't open the vault. I was at the dance and then the power went out and then Flint and Neon tried to arrest...
Coldly, Ironwood interrupts her. You can drop the act. His stride never falters as he verbally pressures RWBY more and more. No more games. Torchwick was never Oz. I thought he had you fooled, but clearly you orchestrated his escape. RWBY shakes her head.
What are you...
And he bulldozes right over her. I know Zhao Long's been in contact with them. Do you think I'm stupid? I am Atlas. I know everything that happens in this city, including you lying about the lamp. RWBY's eyes go wide as dinner plates, hands raised defensively.
I didn't want to lie to you.
Ironwood's eyes sharpen and he continues, interrupting her. How far does this go back? Argus? Haven? Beacon? When we found Cinder in the CCT that night, you earned my respect, but maybe that was always your game. RWBY stomps her foot, growing angry.
I'm on your side! I've always been on your side!
This outburst sharpens Ironwood's anger. You opened my door to criminals. You let Robin go when you knew she was stealing right under my nose. You opened the vault chamber. Ironwood is now close enough to circle RWBY's side, and RWBY's instincts start to kick in. Her hand flinches towards Crescent Rose, but she stops herself, slowly lowering her arm to her side. Her words are shaky as she responds, backing towards the edge of the bridge to create some distance.
General, this is what she wants! This is her game! She wants us to turn on each other. Please, you have to listen to me.
Ironwood's teeth grit down hard. After a moment, his rage slips away and a mask of calm overtakes him. I'm done listening. In a flash, he draws his weapon, due process, and fires. We're given a wide shot as a single crack rings through the hall, RWBY teetering back on the bridge. We close in on RWBY's widening eyes as her emblem drifts past her face in slow motion, having been ripped free from her jacket. She tumbles backwards, hands still reaching for Crescent Rose as she is knocked over the edge and into the dark abyss below. Ironwood stares where she was, pistol still smoking. Turning towards the elevator to leave, he says over his shoulder, "On your feet, soldier." Winter, watching wide-eyed, struggles to her feet through the pain. She spares one last glance at Freya's body before following after Ironwood. The screen goes black, and for the first time all volume, we hear Ozpin's voice. I have made many mistakes. The screen cuts to life, showing Penny flying through a street of Atlas, searching tirelessly. Countless, in fact. Oz continues, and rarely do I find there's an answer to the question, where did I go wrong? Penny, unable to find Cinder, flies off. A child, staring out the window of his family's apartment in Mantle, excitedly points at her, hopping up and down. In the reflection, we see several of Atlas's battle airships gliding through the sky, moving into position. I claw at every decision, every little choice, but every time I do, any alternative foretells only a worse outcome. These words are punctuated as we see Atlesian troops marching down the street, accompanied by paladins and knights, something that goes unrecognized by the child. I suppose this is why we are forced to rely on one another, to make up for the cruelties natural to fate, but our judgments are just as much a choice prone to those failings, perhaps even more vulnerable. We cut over to one of the distribution warehouses from episode 10, where Robin has been reverently laid across a desk, her body and face just now being covered in a white sheet. May glares at it, grief-stricken, before turning to Fiona and Joanna, giving them orders. They pop open several crates containing stolen Atlesian energy rifles, and they begin to hand them out. We follow them out into the streets, using some clever editing to show them coming into direct conflict with Atlas's forces enacting martial law. From atop the edge of Atlas, we see several skirmishes breaking out across Mantle, and we pull back to show Tyrion, poised atop a building as Oz continues speaking. I've put trust in the duplicitous, contrived fear from the weak, but no mistake has ever scorned me quite like the misjudgment of a friend. Tyrion, however, is not watching the conflict, or the armada of airships spreading out across the skies. No, he's watching the clouds over the mountains in the distance, a spot free of movement. All the same, he watches it with a rapturous smile, eyes tearing as he cups his hands in silent prayer. My back is littered with the scars, left by foes they fled from, or carved by their own hand. We cut to Atlas's medical ward, where John, Nora, and Ren are only now waking up from their defeat, surrounded by rushing medical staff trying to tend to those who were injured during the fight in the foyer, many of whom aren't going to make it, to the Three's despair. When the truth is revealed, it is rare for the beloved to act in any way predictable. We're shown as Weiss, Blake, and Yang, stripped of their equipment, are shoved into holding cells by Atlas guards, passing a cell holding a battered Watts as they do. The three glare at their captors as the hard light wall is activated, holding them in. At this point, the monologue begins to shift a little, no longer fully Ozpin. Maybe that's why I cling to hope. We see as Penny arrives in Ironwood's office. The remainder of her team is there, as are Winter and Ironwood himself, and an exhausted-looking CL is the first to rush to Penny's side to assess the damages. Penny reassures her with a sad smile and a tap on the arm before walking forward to Ironwood. The man is tired, looking over a holographic map of Atlas and Mantle on his office's table. Hope allows us to imagine a better humanity, one free of its flaws, where we all push to understand each other a little more each day. Ironwood, noticing Penny, turns and locks eyes with her. Almost like a proud father, he rests a hand on her shoulder, but Penny doesn't seem at all comforted by the motion. Ironwood doesn't linger and turns back to his map. Where trust isn't a risk, but a promise that everyone strives to keep. Penny walks past him to Winter, who is staring out the window to the mass troop mobilization outside. Both turn to look at each other, faces uncertain, and Winter puts a reassuring hand on Penny's back. I've seen the good. And just because there's so much bad doesn't mean the world can't get better. Back in Mantle, on a rooftop, is Malachite, curled in on herself, watching the military spread out overhead. Cinder approaches, clutching her injured arm, and both lock scathing eyes with one another, disappointed by their mutual failures. This is only interrupted by a Kane tapping an HVAC unit behind them. They turn, finding Roman and Neo smugly leaning against the roof entrance, lamp in hand. Roman raises his brows, causing Cinder to scowl even harder. I just have to keep hoping. We finally cut back to RWBY, falling down and down into the depths of Atlas. Mid-flight, she finally shakes herself free of shock and draws Crescent Rose, using it as best she can to slow her momentum and navigate the rocky outcroppings around her. Still not slowed enough and hurtling towards an opening, she drags Crescent Rose into the wall. The deceleration doesn't seem like enough, but the blade stops a mere foot away from the hole, leaving RWBY dangling out of the bottom of Atlas. Hoping, and fighting, to see that day. Tired, RWBY pulls herself up into a more comfortable position on her weapon. She stares out towards Mantle, despondent at the number of airships and the flashes of battle going on below. However, the thing that catches her eye the most is the clouds where Tyrion had been looking, now far darker and stormier than before. As the sun finally dips below the red horizon with a pillar of light, a hulking shape pushes through the cloud cover, a massive black and white whale that surfs through the lightning with no issue. The camera pulls behind RWBY, giving us more appreciation for the scale, and a single black corvid lands on an outcropping in the stone behind her. We cut to black as RWBY's speech rounds us out. But first, we have to make it through the night.
Spreadsheet.